to the Union buildings now. The Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara is on a state visit, a reciprocal state visit with President Cyril Ramaphosa. The two countries enjoying a fairly healthy economic relationship. Our international editor Sophie Mokoena is standing by for the latest. A very good morning to you, Sophie. You're going to speak to the Minister of the Department of International Relations. What is she saying this morning?
The President of Ivory Coast, Alassane Ouattara, arrived for the state visit. You are aware that President Ramaphosa visited the West African nations last year, and one country that he visited was Ivory Coast. And to talk to us about this visit and also some other international issues, I have with me the Minister of International Relations, Dr. Naledi Pandor. Good morning, Minister. Back from AU and hard at work?
Yes, morning, Sophie. Morning to the SABC viewers. Yes, indeed, we're back from a very successful mid-year coordinating meeting of the African Union, where we evaluate progress with the plan of action of the African Union on an annual basis. So the meetings went very well in terms of programming and particularly progress with Agenda 2063. We got reports on the advances that are being made. But of course, you're aware that there are areas of conflict which are of great concern to the African Union. We had the interim president of Libya present at the meeting, and I believe the chair of the African Union was to meet with him just to see how the Union may assist Libya to get to a point where they have democratic elections.
Minister, let's look at what's happening here today. You, as a country, President Ramaphosa will be hosting his counterpart from Ivory Coast. How will you sum up the relations between the two countries?
Well, there have always been positive relations between Côte d'Ivoire and South Africa. But I think since the visit by President Ramaphosa in December last year, the relations have just grown to a fantastic level, and we're hoping that we've laid a basis for even stronger links between South Africa and Côte d'Ivoire. We're working hard to increase business activity between our two countries. We've seen an uptick in South African business exports to Côte d'Ivoire, and we would like to see more exports from Côte d'Ivoire to South Africa. Côte d'Ivoire is implementing a national development plan. Several of our private sector companies have expressed interest in a number of the infrastructure projects that are part of that NDP.
At a political level, Minister, I'm sure you'd recall that in 2009, after elections, there was violence, and at some point in time, the former South African President Thabo Mbeki was requested by the AU to assist that country. At a political level, are the relations still sound? And what are the prospects for Ivory Coast, the coming election? Is the country relatively stable now? You were there last year.
Well, I believe there is political stability. The concern is the region. As you know, they're affected by what is happening in the Sahel countries, and we are seeing the conflict, the terrorism spread to other countries. We now see more attacks in Togo. Very concerned about that because there hadn't been any up to 2 months ago. We're also concerned that in Burkina Faso we're seeing an increase in attacks. So that region is volatile. It is indicating levels of insecurity that are very worrying. But Côte d'Ivoire has begun to tighten its security organs, to pay greater attention to the fight against terrorism, and has established an anti-terrorism center where their forces are being trained, and they've actually offered South Africa training and SADC in this center of theirs. So at the moment, stable, moving toward the next democratic election, As you may be aware, former President Gbagbo is back in the country and has been allowed to organize meetings of his party. He has apparently indicated that he wants to promote national unity and democracy and would work toward that.
Turning to other issues, Minister, we cannot ignore the war in Ukraine. Today, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, will be traveling to Turkey, where there are talks in terms of trying to unlock or to perhaps resolve the standoff on export of goods and services, but particularly the grain and the fertilizers. Are you familiar with what's happening in Turkey right now between Ukraine and Russia and all stakeholders and the role played by President of Turkey?
Yes, indeed, we are familiar. South Africa is a partner country to the G7, and this initiative of a response to what is called the global crisis response was reported on by Secretary General Guterres at the G7 summit in Germany. So we were given an update, and he did indicate that within a 2 to 3 week period, he believed they would be at a point where they would arrive at final agreement. And here we are. It looks like Russia and Ukraine have signed off on an agreement to have quite a substantial amount of the grain transported to countries that wish to purchase wheat. So if the sign-off today is successful, we will see movement of that grain to different parts of the world.
Thank you so much, Minister, for your time. I know you're waiting for your counterpart. Thank you for talking to us. That was Minister of International Relations, Dr. Naledi Pandor, who was talking to us about generally the issues related to Africa, peace and security, the meeting he attended in Lusaka weekend, but also the state visit. And of course, the big international story today is that the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, will be in Turkey. You know that Ukraine and Russia, under the facilitation of Turkey, is discussing a possibility of opening corridors so that those goods that are supposed to be exported to other countries, particularly the grain, as there are concerns around issues of food insecurity, but also the fertilizers. We also saw the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, visiting the Arab countries, and therefore, yes, there are lots and lots of stories. It is not only the state visit. Even in the context of the state visit, I'm sure President Cyril Ramaphosa and President Ouattara will take time to reflect on what's happening globally. Back to you in studio.